The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It drummed against the glass walls of the imposing office building where power, ambition, and pride walked in polished shoes. Inside that glass fortress, Victoria Reed, the youngest CEO in her company's history, moved with the quiet command of someone who had clawed her way to the top. Every morning she arrived before sunrise, heels echoing through the marble lobby. And every morning, without fail, she passed the same man scrubbing the floors. A man with tired eyes, worn shoes, and a badge that read Marcus. She never noticed the warmth of his wave or the gentle smile he offered her. To her, he was invisible, just another face in the background of her empire. But this morning was different. This morning, something was about to change. Marcus had worked there for nearly a year. He arrived before dawn, left after everyone else, and never complained. The staff liked him. He was kind, humble, and always willing to help. But nobody really knew him. He was just the janitor. Nobody asked where he came from or what his story was. To Victoria, he simply didn't exist in any meaningful way. Before we dive deeper into this story of hidden strength, second chances, and unexpected grace, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe in kindness that transcends titles and second chances that reveal the best in people. Your support helps us share more stories that touch hearts around the world. Now, let's see what Victoria was about to discover. The day began like any other. Victoria dropped off her 9-year-old daughter, Sophie, at the company's daycare and tutoring center before climbing the stairs to back-to-back meetings. Her mind was consumed with deadlines, investors, and an impending merger that could define her career. Between phone calls and presentations, she barely noticed the small things. The smell of fresh coffee, the quiet laughter of employees, the janitor who always seemed to appear just as a hallway needed cleaning. That afternoon, after a long, exhausting meeting, Victoria's assistant reminded her that Sophie's math tutor had cancelled again. It was the third time that month. Sophie struggled with mathematics, and Victoria, despite all her resources, couldn't seem to find someone who could help. "It's fine," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'll take her for ice cream later. She deserves that much." When the meeting ended, Victoria decided to stop by the tutoring room to pick up Sophie early. But as she approached the door, she heard laughter, a sound she hadn't heard from her daughter in weeks. Curious, she peered through the small glass window in the door. What she saw made her freeze in place. Inside, sitting cross-legged beside Sophie at a small whiteboard, was Marcus, the janitor. His grey uniform sleeves were rolled up, his eyes gentle and bright as he drew simple, clever illustrations of pizza slices and chocolate bars to explain fractions. Sophie was smiling, completely absorbed, her face glowing with excitement. "Thank you, Mr. Marcus. I finally understand fractions," she said, clapping her hands with joy. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she didn't move. She just watched her daughter laugh freely. Watched this quiet man, the one she'd never thought twice about, bring light and understanding to her child's world in a way no expensive tutor ever had. When Marcus finally noticed her standing at the door, he stood up abruptly, wiping his hands on his uniform. His expression was a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. I'm sorry, ma'am," he said softly. "Sophie was having trouble with her homework. I used to tutor math a long time ago, so I thought I'd help while I was cleaning." Victoria didn't know what to say. She just nodded stiffly, murmured a polite "thank you," and took Sophie away. But her mind was spinning. Used to tutor math. What did that mean? Why would someone with that kind of skill be working as a janitor? That night, Victoria couldn't sleep. The image of Marcus patiently guiding her daughter haunted her thoughts. Curiosity gave way to guilt. She had built her success on recognizing potential, but she had walked past it every single day without seeing it. The next morning, she decided to find out more about him. When she asked Human Resources for his file, she was stunned. Marcus Bennett, 42 years old, former high school mathematics teacher, employed for 10 years until his wife, a nurse, passed away from cancer. After that, he left teaching to care for his young son. And when medical bills consumed his savings, he took whatever job he could find. Eventually, he ended up working as a janitor to keep a roof over their heads. Victoria sat back in silence, feeling a knot grow in her throat. The story broke something open inside her, a mixture of sadness, admiration, and shame. In the following weeks, she noticed him more. How he smiled at the security guards. How he volunteered to fix a flickering light, even when it wasn't his job. How his eyes lit up when Sophie waved at him. Slowly she began to talk with him, not as a CEO to an employee, but as one person to another. She learned that his son David was in middle school and wanted to be an engineer but couldn't afford tutoring. She discovered that Marcus spent his lunch breaks reading old math textbooks just to stay sharp, in case he ever got the chance to teach again. One afternoon, Victoria walked into the break room to find a group of employees whispering. They were laughing quietly, pointing down the hallway where Marcus was scrubbing a coffee stain from the carpet. "Imagine," one of them said, "a janitor trying to play teacher. What's next? Teaching calculus with a mop." The laughter burned in her ears. Before she could stop herself, she stepped forward and said firmly, "That man teaches better than most people in this building have ever managed to lead." The room fell silent. It was in that moment she realized something profound. Power wasn't about titles. It was about respect. The following week, Victoria invited Marcus to her office. He entered nervously, holding his cap, his eyes downcast. "I hope I didn't cause any problems with Sophie," he said quietly. She smiled for the first time in weeks. "Quite the opposite," she replied. "You reminded me what true leadership looks like." Then she slid a folder across her desk. Inside was a proposal, a company-sponsored educational program for employees' children, led by Marcus himself. "I want you to lead this," she said gently. "Not as a janitor, but as a teacher again, if you're willing." For a long moment Marcus said nothing. His hands trembled as he looked at the papers. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his voice choked. "I haven't been a teacher in years." Victoria's eyes glistened. "You never stopped being one," she said. The months that followed changed everything. Marcus's program became a success, helping dozens of children from company families improve their grades. He built a small classroom near the daycare, filled with laughter, colorful posters, and the warmth of purpose. Sophie's confidence soared. So did Marcus's, though he still cleaned sometimes, not because he had to, but because he said it kept him grounded. And every morning, Victoria no longer walked past him. She walked beside him, greeting him with a smile that carried gratitude and genuine respect. One day during the company's annual meeting, Victoria shared the story publicly. She spoke of humility, hidden strength, and the quiet dignity of those who refuse to give up. When she finished, she turned to Marcus in the front row and said, "This man reminded me that the greatest leaders often start by lifting others up. Titles mean nothing without kindness." The audience rose to their feet in applause. Marcus stood there, tears glistening in his eyes. Later that night, Marcus's son, David, came up to Victoria and whispered, "Thank you for seeing my father." And she realized that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or opportunity, but simple recognition of their worth. Years passed, and the story of the janitor who became a teacher again spread far beyond those office walls. It became a reminder that everyone carries invisible battles, and Victoria learned that day that real power isn't measured by corner offices or bank accounts, but by the lives we touch and the dignity we restore. Marcus taught her that sometimes the most important people in our lives are the ones we overlook every single day. And Sophie, she grew up knowing that true greatness wears many faces, sometimes even a janitor's uniform. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and no person is ever just invisible. Comment below, everyone has worth, if you believe that every person deserves to be seen and valued. Thank you for watching, and remember, look closer. The heroes in your life might be hiding in plain sight.